Okay, so who would like to have the first question? Let's have this gentleman at the back, because he had his hand up first. I saw his hand. If you just stand up so that everyone can see you. And
Sorry, as Mark Galbraith was speaking quite quickly, so I missed a couple of things he said, but I did pick up on, you mentioned HMO exemptions from HMO rules. What was that about?
I think HMO for Charities.
Yeah, HMO for Charities. Under Schedule 14 of the Housing Act, 2004, if a property is managed or leased to a local housing authority or a registered social landlord, the property is effectively not a HMO. So it looks like one, it operates like one, you've got individual residents there, but it's not legally classed as a HMO. And the interesting thing about that is you can effectively work that in Article 4 areas where HMOs are banned. It's effectively the council's exemption for HMOs, because councils run HMOs, but they're not defined as HMOs within the rules that they have to stick to. So that's the exemption side of things there.
So that means you can do it in an Article 4 area.
Absolutely.
And in non-Article 4 areas, you don't necessarily need a license, even if you have 6 or more. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct, yes. Yeah, so a building that you would normally have to get a HMO license for and comply with Article 4 and comply with all the regulatory burdens, you don't have to do that if you lease the building to the charity, because they're self-regulating. But the catch is, you've generally just got to get the property up to the same standard as a HMO. So the work still needs to be done, but you have a few extra benefits in terms of the way that you're operating it in that respect there.
You won't get the nitpicking monitoring.
Absolutely, you don't get the nitpicking monitoring. No, you get the the charity commission coming round, and dare I say it, but if you look at the standard of some local authority properties and what the tenants put up with, the local authority are the worst landlord. I hope nobody works for the council here. If you do, change jobs.
Before you get me started on local authorities, I better take another question.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much, Paul. Who else has got a question for our panellists? Let's have this gentleman over here. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm currently developing a mixed-use property in Hastings into 4 apartments, which I'm going to develop to a good standard. And I've set myself the goal that I'm going to market these myself rather than go through traditional estate agents. Has anybody in the panel got experience of marketing, for example, social media and so on?
Well, let's have Kevin on that one, and then if you guys want to comment, because I know you do developments. You've gone.
Is that marketing for the rental of them or for sale? For sale of them. I don't have lots of experience of marketing for sale on social media, but we have been using social media a lot more recently for attracting development opportunities. So we're using Facebook a lot recently and LinkedIn, but probably Anna and Stephen have got more experience.
So obviously it depends what kind of target market you're looking at, and I would think about that. If they're end users, I would definitely not recommend, based on our experience, trying to market yourself, because you really notice the value of the estate agent's list when you don't have it. But if they're to investors or sort of less standard buyers, then definitely social media works. When we put some social media stuff about the 22 flats in Ashton, we probably had 10 offers in a week from kind of qualified buyers. So it definitely does work for the investor, but think about your target buyer.
If it's the cost of the agents that's putting you off and you think you're better off keeping the margin yourself, on our ones in Croydon, we set a minimum barrier that we were happy to pay them, and everything over a certain value that they achieve for the property, they get a bonus. So that might be a good halfway house to save you a bit of money, but still drive the prices up.
Brilliant. Who's next? Let's have this lady here. Where's our mic? Yes, Jackie.
Hi there.
Hang on one sec.
Sorry. Paul, which charities do you let to, and how did you get in with them in the first place?
I'll just be blunt about it. I mean, I I had 24 houses trashed in 2014, and I was in the shit. It's that simple. And I was so stressed and so ill of it.
You needed charity.
I just had to change. So I needed charity, exactly. So moving forward from there, I've always worked with very vulnerable people. I mean, I started out housing women fleeing domestic violence. I've housed people from hostels before, and I've housed a lot of vulnerable people to get direct LHA payments. There was one particular charity who I'd approached an organisation, and it was housing ex-offenders. And I thought, do I have the bottle to do this? And I'd asked them about the client group, and I thought, crikey, I must be nuts. But let's do it. So I got in with the ex-offenders charity, and in 5 months they had 27 of my units, because I was that aggressive converting them. And then once I'd kind of converted them and I'd designed a standard that worked, they'd started to branch off into other angles, because they then said, well, we've got young vulnerable people, will you work with this organisation? So I tried that, and there's not many landlords who've basically got the bottle to do it. There's only 4 in the Leeds area who are actually doing this, and I've got the details, and I've known 2 of them for quite a long time. And the next stage from there was when I was dealing with the young vulnerable people. I then suddenly thought, crikey, I've got a lot of my eggs in one basket, because I had this one meeting that was crazy. I turned up at this charities office, and they said, we want you to meet the staff. So I sat down, there's like a boardroom, and there's all these people here. And they said, right, this is everybody who manages your houses. I've got 14 social workers looking after my buildings, working full-time for us. I'm kind of scratching my head thinking, this is crazy. It's like free letting stuff. So that's just, one of those weird moments in life. So then the next stage from there was, I then thought, my eggs are in one basket, I need to start and diversify. So I then started to use my knowledge and my network, once I'd started to get in there, to try and work with other angles. I house some young people who've got mental health difficulties, who need a full-time social worker living with them as well, so that they're maybe partially autistic, and they can't manage themselves in the community. So that's another one with mental health issues. Personally, I found the asylum seekers to be one of the best charities I've been working with. And the rules for the asylum seekers are quite simple. Be a good citizen and you might get citizenship in the UK. Be a bad tenant and a bad citizen, you'll be put on a plane, dropped off in Libya, and you'll be shot. So when you look at it like that, they've really got to try their very best to stay in the UK. So the asylum seeker charities, they've been fantastic. A couple of them up north, G4S are one. I've actually got a lease here that Gary witnessed earlier that I'm doing with G4S at the moment. Got another unit going over to them. Serco are another one. They're more Manchester-based and Midlands-based as well. So they're very good, the asylum seeker charities. And there's quite a few of...
Okay, we'll move on. But in the experts' corner afterwards, you can come and meet Paul.
Grab me in the bar and get me drunk.
But the thing to mention that we've discussed as well is that there's still huge demand among charities for this sort of housing, and there are very few landlords that want to do it.
There is, and one quick closing point actually I will mention is local councils will do it. There's a lot in London. Brent Council do it. So they will pay you a premium, and you can lease your property to the local authority. Wakefield Council do it. In Wakefield, if you rent your property to Wakefield Council, you'll get a £5,000 interest-free loan to refurb the house, and an extra £5,000 if you want to make it a HMO. So there's lots of local councils who are doing it to deal with their shortage of housing stock. But the main thing, if anybody's interested in this, is type in registered social landlords, and then type your target area into Google, and that's where you find it, and you can find all these different organisations that have different specialisms.
There you go. It's all about knowing what to put into Google. Okay, who's next? Let's have this gentleman here.
One of the things that I noticed that there was a lot of HMOs in there. Which, in your experience, are the best HMO lenders in terms of course, giving us the most money after we've done the work?
Who wants to have a go at that? Do you want to repeat that question? I'm not sure whether I fully got it. Oh, it's about HMO lenders. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so this is my experience, and what I'm telling you is on a non-advised basis. So don't hold me to this. But the last lenders I've used recently were Lloyds Bank and Interbay and Hampshire Trust Bank. Hampshire Trust Bank, when I worked with them, it took them from mortgage application, from mortgage offer to mortgage drawdown, took them 6 days. They were hot, and they did everything at the speed of light. That's not to say it will happen again, but it did for me at that time. And they can do things where you can take out a 30-year term with 10 years interest only, followed by repayments, or 3 and 27, or whatever mix you want. You can make it up as you go along. And they were very, very effective. And they lent on the investment value, not on the bricks and mortar or vacant possession or blah blah blah. So I found them very, very effective.
Sorry, who was that?
Hampshire Trust Bank. Hampshire
Trust
Trust Bank.
Interbay and the other one?
Interbay, Lloyds, and also Sherbrooke. But Hampshire Trust Bank have been around for donkey's years, but they've only branched into the buy-to-let scene recently.
Okay. Are they? Is this commercial loans with Hampshire
Well,
Trust?
this would be, these are more than 6-bedroom properties.
Yeah.
I guess they can do smaller, but I've never asked the question.
Okay. I'm going to take a big risk here. I'll give it to Shushmita at the back. Let's see what she's got to say. And Tanya. They're my daughters. I don't know what they're going to ask.
I do real estate at uni, so my question's from the guy that's doing development in St Albans, because I've just done a project on St Albans, so I've looked into like the development plans and local plans. So I was wondering, because there's so much greenbelt land there, and there's so much in those plans about like what you can do with the development. How did you get around that with the council?
How did I get around what, sorry?
Like, how did you fit your development into the development plan and the local plan? Like,
Well, which the developments I showed at the end, or the one we won the award for?
no, the one in St Albans.
I think she's saying generally, how do you deal with the green belt issues and the local plan and the restrictions?
Yeah,
in
sure.
The
I think the green belt's going to be protected around St Albans particularly. There's a lot of pressure on it, but they're really trying to encourage more kind of urban development rather than take up the green belt. There's been a few examples in the area which are not great, where land owners are selling off bits of land, saying that it's going to get planning permission later, it's going to be D-zoned, and I don't think that's going to happen. St Albans has got a really good green belt around it, and I think it's very unlikely for any of that to be cut into. There's a couple of areas over near Hatfield which are likely to be D-zoned, but in our particular area I think it's going to be protected very much. Does that answer the question?
Okay, lady at the front. Sorry, a lot of running, Julia.
So my question is not technical, it's more about personalities, because I am working with a number of different people. It's a question to you guys about JVs. I'm working with a number of people, and what I've had to do is, because I've almost got into wrong JV relationships because everybody wants to work with me. So what I've had to do is I've had to go back and kind of analyse my personality to work out what is going to complement me. So I just would be great if you guys can share maybe some issues you've had with JVs and how you would say, maybe what personality types or stuff to check.
So when I was at school, I'm very much a driver, so I like to get things done, and I don't have a whole lot of time for real analytical people. So when you used to be in groups at school and used to do presentations, I used to think I just didn't like people. The matter of fact was when I went to work at Ernst & Young, they personality mapped you. They taught you how to deal with people who are different to you. And that was the biggest learning curve I ever went on. So if you've ever done one of those exercises, if you haven't, you need to, because they're so important. It's not that you don't get on with someone, it's just that you don't know how to effectively manage them. A lot of our project managers are very detail-orientated people, and that's why they are very good at managing projects. I don't have the time or the patience to do all of that stuff anymore. So you've got to be able to get the most out of them. So that one of those personality mapping courses is really important.
So are there any that you would recommend? Because I've done loads of them.
Well, maybe the wealth dynamics one that was mentioned earlier is, I mean, there's some useful advice in there. I think there's one other thing, as well as personality, there's a kind of character thing, which obviously you don't get to test someone's character in 5 minutes meeting them, but over the weeks and months that you're getting to know someone and building up a relationship. And I think that's the point about why you shouldn't jump into bed with someone, metaphorically, because you can't, like, you can't, whatever else you want, anyway. But because you can't know how someone's going to respond or react to a situation until you have given them time and a chance to respond to those things.
What were your learnings? When they personality mapped you, what did you have to work on?
The biggest thing I've learned, because I'm a bit of a control freak, so but most of you that know me, they know I'm like that. So what I realised is that I can't work with someone who's exactly like me, or when I do, I've got to balance it up. So it was just really knowing myself has helped me understand the type of people I can work with and where my gaps are.
Who holds you to account? So who holds you to account? So who says to you, do you know what, actually you're overstepping the mark?
I have, I'm using the 3-2-1 rule. So it's 3 coaches, 2 mentors and 1 mastermind. But at the moment, I'm heavily loaded on mastermind. So it's kind of helping me analyse where I need to be. My coach holds me accountable.
Okay, I think we'll take this one to the experts' corner afterwards. Any more for any more? Who's next with their who haven't I had? Let's have this gentleman over here. Yeah, you do, Rishi. Don't worry. It just takes time to get over to you. If you could just stand up as well.
Hi. So I'm looking at doing some sort of JV, but I'm completely new to this kind of space. So are there any kind of rules or things that I should really know before getting into that?
What I'd like is, we've all worked with JVs. If we could just start with Kevin and work our way down, and just give a short tip, if you like, for working with JV.
Yeah, I think don't rush. I think you've definitely, like the lady was saying, you've got to get to know people. And there's almost, I think, like in share trading, they talk about doing like paper trading, where you don't use real money, right? So I think take some time, get to know people, understand what their experience is, and understand what they bring and what you bring, and how you're adding value together. I think that's what I would say initially.
Kind of reiterate the same thing. Start off slowly and do, let's say it's the person might lend you some money. Do it very smallly. Borrow 5k from the person and then do a deal and then work with them and see how you interact and see how you get along and see if it can actually germinate and grow into a bigger thing, or if it can't. And if it can't, then do the deed finished and then say, nice to know you, and then carry on. That'd be the best thing, really.
I might throw a different view, which is don't do JVs.
I thought you were going to say that. No, it's fine.
I've always done everything on my own shoulders with the property business and my houses, just because I bought too many too fast, too young. But it's sometimes going it alone is one of the best ways to do it. It's nice to have somebody else to network with. I mean, like, for example, Gary, me and Gary talk an awful lot, but we've not done any JVs. So it's nice to just have soundboards of other people who are doing things independently. Or alternatively, if you are wanting to go down the JV route, it's finding an expert who's a lot more experienced than you, who's got something to offer, but you can offer them as well, and seeing what you could learn. So, for example, maybe somebody like Ranjan, you could offer to work in Ranjan's office for a day, free of charge, see what you could pick up. But by giving your time there, you might learn something there about, okay, well, he's running his business like this. What skills can I pick up from there? And Ranjan's got JVs with his team who manage everything. It's a joint venture with everybody who runs the operation. So it's maybe considering different approaches there.
Understand what you're aiming for, and understand what the person you want to work with or are considering working with is aiming for, and make sure that they're similar enough that you can both move in the same direction and actually be beneficial working together.
Mine's a bit different. Do something fun with them. So don't go for coffee. don't sit down and have a meeting, don't read a PowerPoint presentation. Go for a beer. If you don't drink, go for dinner, right? Because you'll learn about their family, who they're from, where they went to school, and all of that kind of stuff shapes a person, and that's the person you're going to be working with and investing money with. And anyone can pull together a good PowerPoint deck. Not many people can pull together a good personality.
I was actually going to add, my bit was going to be pretty much what Stefan says. One of the reasons we run this event is to bring people together. And I'm passionate about property. It brings passionate property people together. And you get to see how people are, how people talk and interact, and how people respond to problems and issues. And you go out for beers afterwards and before. Well, not so much before, I don't do beers before the event, but more coffees before the event. But you get to just understand people's character. And the people that join our VIP, we'll do a quick plug for the VIP, people that join our VIP program, they come every month and they get to know more people over a sustained period of time. So rather than just one interaction at one meeting, it's meeting the same people over several meets, getting to know, trust and like them, and then business and opportunities happen. From doing this very event, a lot of deals come to me, a lot of people offer to back some of the deals that we do, and business happens. And I like talking about property, I like mixing with property people, so you do something you like as a vehicle to finding people that you want to JV with. And that seems to be the way that's worked, really. Anyone else who had another question? Let's have Manny over there. And then I'll go to you, ma'am, at the back.
Hi,
Yes.
the question is for Gary. Gary, you mentioned you do sort of semi-large HMOs, 15, 20 rooms and plus. So I just really wanted to understand from you how you manage these, I think it's Ranjan mentioned commercial properties into HMOs, because I do HMOs, but mine are more 6, 7 bedroom ones. So I'd like to know a little bit more about your commercial HMOs.
Sure. How I manage them once they're finished, or
No. Where do you find them? Because a lot of the commercial properties, like where I am, are around industrial areas and within business parks.
Okay.
So not quite relevant for
best
HMOs.
thing to do: keep your ear to the ground. Just be very vigilant and aware of what's happening in that, and talk to people that are got things. See if people got a. So you see in a commercial building that's up for let, and it's been up for let for quite a few months. Then you approach them or the agent, see if they're prepared to sell, or lease it to you for the option for you to buy it. Well, all the ones that I've done, they once upon a time they used to be a house, and then they converted them into an office, and now they're sitting. So then you ask the question. So that's it. Also develop relationships with commercial agents, because lots of commercial agents, even though they do what they do, they don't actually market themselves effectively. So lots of the buildings just sit on their own website, and then they think they're marketing their properties, but not actually. So it's a good idea for you to have relationships with commercial agents. So it's been commercial agents. Also, some surveyors, they get hold of properties too that the person wants to sell, and they try and sell them too. And they don't really do a good job of it. So you can just by talking to these people, surveyors, commercial agents, and keeping your ear to the ground and see what's happening in your local area.
I've seen some of Gary's stuff, and I just thought I'd, as a sort of outsider, summarise what I think his niche is. What I think he's done very well is that he's found commercial buildings which were once a house. So they still look like a house, but they're not giant. They're not giant office blocks which attract a lot of bigger developers. They're kind of in this sort of smaller commercial property space, which it has no life as a commercial building because it just doesn't have suspended floors, suspended ceilings, what people want in a modern office. So it sits there, and you need to be a little bit more of an experienced, savvy, smaller developer to want to actually take that on, but it's too small for the big guys. And there are tons of properties like that. I mean, does that...
Yes, that's correct.
Is that a fair summary?
That's correct.
Is it within a residential area or...
Yeah.
One street is mixed use, so it's houses as well as offices and things like that. The other one is the same, actually. Yeah, shops and houses and that. and one is majority. Oh, actually, no. It's all of them are mixed-use streets. All of them.
Okay, Kevin, you wanted to chip in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, my experience when I found the deal that won us the deal of the year was really like persistence. I was telling someone earlier, I went to see the film The Founder on the guy from McDonald's.
That.
Yeah, it was really good. Well, what I found was fun was that he was travelling around as this salesman with a record player, wasn't he? And he was playing a record, which was so this is dedication, right? So he's travelling with a record player and a record, and it was a personal development record that he was listening to. And the message was about persistence, and he was saying that the difference between successful and the almost successful is just persistence. And he persisted all the way. And when I got this deal, I'd been persisting for years with the agents, always knocking on their doors, and there was land agents in the area. They've got their favourites already, and they don't want to talk to Kevin because Kevin's not one of their favourites. But I just kept knocking on the door, and Jeremy would never talk to me, but I kept knocking on the door. And one time I'm going through the town, I saw a few estate agents outside the office who had always been ringing, and they said, "Oh, Kev, come over." He goes, "Oh, this is Chris, he's a new land agent in the area, and he's looking to make more contacts." And so I just worked with Chris for a few months, helping him in the area, and then this deal come up. So it was only through just keep knocking on the door, and you don't know when it's going to pay off, you know. So that would be my advice.
With deals like this, it's obviously very different between London and further north than London. So we look for...
You mean Cockfosters?
Yeah. In London, everything goes on Rightmove or Zoopla, all commercial buildings. Midlands North, I'd say 90% don't. There are a lot, we look in Wigan, Liverpool, Manchester, there are so many solicitors, architects, etc., who've all gone online and their offices are just sat empty in residential streets. But unless you're driving around those streets, you're not going to find them or hit the phones. It's completely two different worlds in terms of sourcing.
Okay, we're just going to take one question from the lady at the back. And then we're pretty much bang out of time.
Thank you. My name's Karen. First of all, I think, Paul, you should write a book, for sure.
Get arrested.
I guess my question is a more general one to all of the panel, because we've got a lot of very different experience here in the room. If you would wind back the clock to when you started and you think back to those days, what would be the one thing that you would change if you had the opportunity to?
Oh, that's a great panel question. Go on then.
I know exactly what I would change. And it was asking for more help. I did the typical macho bloke thing, and I took on too much, and I was there just as a man, just dealing with everything. And women have better social skills and are better for asking for help and better organising things. I've learnt that now, and if I'd learnt to ask for help and learnt to delegate a bit more and not be a control freak, because I was a control freak, then I think a lot of things would have changed. I would have had less stress, and my business would have been in a better position. So that's what I would have changed.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think for me, perhaps jumping out of my comfort zone quicker. So the success has always been when I've jumped out of my comfort zone, and there's always a bit of fear before you jump there, but actually when you jump, there's some magic happens, right? So I think doing more of that is actually really good fun too.
Anyone else wants to chip in?
Yeah, I took lots of risks in the early days, but I think that if I had taken more risks, I would have made more of myself in those days. I also wouldn't have bought properties that I did buy at the time, knowing not what I know now. You only know you've bought a lemon once you've bought the lemon. That's how you know it's a lemon. So I would not have done things like that. And hindsight's a great thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I probably would have worried less, especially in the first year we were doing this, and when I was first starting, I would kind of worry, which actually isn't productive, and as the kind of more appropriate approach is just like identify all the risks and work out how you're going to deal with them, right? It's not that complicated, you don't need to get upset about stuff or worried, so I would do that.
Leverage and asking for help was my biggest thing, but don't forget that this is really, really hard work. Like, I've almost had 2 breakdowns. I'm 30. Right. But you've just got to keep going. If this was easy, everyone would be doing it, and it really isn't. So just keep believing in it, because you will get there. And obviously we've all done it, but trust us, none of it has been easy. So just don't stop, don't give up.
There's several song titles in there. And if I could sing, I would indulge you, but unfortunately I can't. Okay, I think that's about as much as we've got time for today. Thanks very much for coming. It's been a big round of applause to this wonderful panel.